I feel like there's a kind of sadness in watching a performance that leaves no trace, no emotional echo, no sense of craft, no moment that lingers long after the credits roll. In the case of Arjun Kapoor, that absence has become the defining characteristic of his screen presence. Over a decade into his career, Arjun Kapoor remains a riddle, not for his complexity but for his stagnation. His body of work reveals an actor suspended in creative limbo. There's no visible evolution, no deepening of craft, no ambition to step outside of what feels like a very narrow emotional comfort zone. He walks through scenes but rarely inhabits them, and more than anything, he remains an actor who seems to misunderstand the very nature of what acting demands. But before we unpack all of that, let's go back to where it all began. In 2012, Arjun Kapoor made his debut in Ishaqzade, a film that was raw and textured, set in the harsh social and political climate of a small town in India. He played Parma, aggressive, damaged, and impulsive opposite Parineeti Chopra's Zoya. The film worked on so many levels. It was gritty and grounded with a strong narrative, and Arjun, to his credit, fit that part perfectly. He didn't seem polished, but that was a strength. He brought a brooding energy to that character. There was an intensity in his silences, an awkward roughness that felt believable. As a debut, it held promise. Not brilliance, but definitely potential. You sense that here was someone who might grow into his craft. Not every actor arrives fully formed, after all. Some need time. There was also a compelling personal narrative to him. The son of producer Boni Kapoor, Arjun had battled obesity, lost significant weight, and rebranded himself for the screen. That story added layers of effort, of reinvention, of preservance. At a time when Bollywood debuts often feel too slick, his was refreshingly uneven. But what followed was an evolution, it was sadly repetition. After Ishaqzade, the roles got bigger, but Arjun's range did not. In Aurangzeb, he played a double role, a perfect setup for showcasing range, two characters with different upbringings, personalities, temperaments, but Arjun brought no internal distinction between the two. They spoke the same way, moved the same way, reacted with the same blank intensity. What could have been an actor's playground became a missed opportunity. Gunday opposite Ranveer Singh was even more revealing. Ranveer approached his role with flamboyance, physicality, and charisma. Arjun beside him felt subdued to the point of invisibility. Not because his role demanded restraint, but because he simply lacked the voltage to match. He rarely created kinetic energy with his co-stars. There's no combustion. Instead, there's a curious emotional detachment, as if he's acting in a different film altogether. In two states, based on Chetan Bhagat's novel, he was more effective. The character of Krish was quiet, socially awkward, and introverted. Arjun's inherent stiffness worked in his favor here. The role didn't ask for much variation, it was a performance that succeeded not because of its range, but because the character lived within Arjun's limited toolkit. For once, the casting aligned with the temperament. But instead of using two states as a foundation to build upon, Arjun continued to orbit similar roles, and gradually his presence began to feel like a background noise. What really makes a performance compelling? It's not just dialogue delivery or emotional breakdowns, it's what the actor does in between those moments. It's how they listen, how they move, how they make stillness feel charged. Acting is not just performance, it's transformation. And I think this is where Arjun consistently falters. Whether he's playing a romantic lead in Half Girlfriend, an action hero in Tevar, or a brooding soldier in India's Most Wanted, the performance rarely shifts. He uses the same vocal tone, the same gaze, the same body language. He expresses rage, affection, sorrow, all with a similar sense of emotional inertia. It's not about being a loud actor. Some of the most powerful performers like Irfan Khan and Nawazuddin Siddiqui are minimalist by nature, but they're alive in every frame. Their eyes speak, their pauses mean something. With Arjun Kapoor, the stillness isn't electric, it's just merely empty. Even in more recent films like Kutte, where he shares screen space with the likes of Tabu and Konkana Sen Sharma, Arjun fades. The contrast is stark between actors who inhabit their roles and the one who seems to just merely observe his. I think at this point it becomes impossible not to talk about the structure around him, because the persistence of Arjun Kapoor, despite his indifferent performance and mostly cold audience response, reflects a larger truth about the industry. Arjun comes from privilege, he's from a storied Bollywood family, he's well connected, well liked, and has access to resources that many far more talented actors may never see. This isn't a criticism of his birthright, no one chooses their family, but it is a criticism of how that privilege has been used. Over and over again, Arjun has been given prime projects, he's headlined major films, received second and third chances, and remain on casting shortlists long after the audiences have lost interest. The reason for that isn't artistic merit, it's excess. And this sadly exposes one of Bollywood's more uncomfortable realities, that opportunities are not distributed based on skill but on familiarity. There was a moment very briefly when it seemed Arjun was ready to stretch. In Sandeep or Pinky Farad, directed by Dibakar Banerjee, he played a suspended cop, haunted, tightly wounded, constantly simmering. It's one of his better performances. There's a quiet violence to his character. He's uncomfortable, and for once that discomfort feels internal. There's something going on behind the eyes. But the film was an anomaly. It didn't mark a shift. Arjun returned almost immediately to the same roles. Ek Villain Returns was again a performance of surface level intensity with no emotional architecture underneath it. And so the cycle continued. One good performance does not signal a reinvention, and sadly, it was followed by more forgettable ones. The question now is, what does Arjun Kapoor want to be? Does he want to be an actor in the true creative sense, or is he content with being a figure on screen performing versions of his own self? Because it's still possible to change. Many actors have found their rhythm later in their careers. Saif Ali Khan's second act began well into his 30s. Even Abhishek Bachchan, for that matter, after years of inconsistency, found quieter, more internal spaces to shine in. But reinvention requires effort, it requires humility, it requires walking away from comfort. Arjun doesn't need a reinvention in image, he needs one in intention. And just to put this idea out there, this video isn't about attacking Arjun Kapoor, it's about asking for more, not just from him but from the system that surrounds him. Arjun Kapoor may have entered the industry with a story of personal transformation, but acting demands constant reinvention, not of your body but of your soul. Until we see that shift in his choices, in his preparation, in his presence, Arjun will remain at best a missed opportunity. So when we say this actor has no range, one's not being cruel, one's just being honest. Because cinema at its core is about empathy. The actor becomes the vessel through which we experience pain, joy, and transformation. When the actor is flat, we feel nothing. And when that happens, film after film, year after year, it stops being a fluke, it becomes the normal. Arjun Kapoor at 15 films and counting is still playing the same person he was back in 2012. And that's the tragedy, not that he failed, but that he never even tried to go deeper. It's not too late, actors have reinvented themselves far later, but reinvention takes hunger, and that hunger, at least on screen, has never been more visible. Until then, Arjun Kapoor remains the unfortunate poster child for what it looks like when the actor sadly has no range.
मुझे जेन्युइनली फर्क नहीं पड़ता, पहली पिक्चर से मजाक उड़ा रहे, मेरा क्या विराट कोहली का मजाक उड़ाया जाता।